my mage is to Sage of Fables. I am your fabled sage. I am very excited to talk about my absolute favorite deck this evening. It is just, this deck is my pride and joy. It is a deck that I am always happy to play, that I'm like, every time I'm playing with new friends and they're like, oh, I need a deck, can I borrow a deck? I'm like, please play this deck. It is a deck with a little bit of history, actually. So my partner Paul, who we both play EDH, and we got into EDH around the same time, and he was one of the people who taught me how to play Magic. In fact, don't hate on me because my boyfriend taught me Magic. Um, so we after we had been playing Commander for about a year, and finally we had said like, oh, we should build decks for each other because that would be a fun exercise because our styles of Magic are just so utterly and completely different. Like, we could not be more of opposite Magic players. It's really funny. Like, I am super spiky, and I love tokens, and I love counter magic, and I'm all blue and red, and he's like Golgari +1/+1 counters, like graveyard incremental value mage. It's very funny. So we thought it would be a fun exercise to build decks for each other. So for him, I built Alicia Sanguine Tribute deck, the Mardu Vampire that costs like 7 mana, who cares about lifelink and how much life you've gained in a turn in order to reduce her CM, or to reduce her amount of mana that you would pay to cast her. And he asked me what I would want him to build, and I was like, I think Brudiclad is really cool, but I just really don't know where to start with it. And so he threw together the 99 of a Brudiclad deck, and I played it a couple times, and, he went for a Spellslinger theme. Creatures like Young Pyromancer and stuff like that make tokens when you cast spells, because at the time, I was playing Mardu Pyromancer in Modern, and I love that deck. Young Pyromancer is easily one of my favorite cards, and so I, basically was like, spells that make tokens and creatures that make tokens when you cast spells. And I was like, and I played it a few times. I was like, this is such a great idea. I really love it. It really captures like what I love in Magic, which is casting a lot of spells in a turn in tokens. And so, goodness, this must have been like 2018, 2017, somewhere around there. And as after playing it a few times with the deck, and I really started to fine tune it, change some pieces out, move some things around, and from there, like, this deck has just like transformed. It's such a joy to play. It has like storm elements. It has big splashy dumb spells. It's just a big ol' is it pile of is it bullshit, and it's really just an excuse for me to play my favorite cards and cards that I love to look at. It's like, I just love it. So with that, if you haven't picked it up, this is a deck tech for Brudiclad that is a Spellslinger Stormy build. It's still looking primarily win through combat damage by turning all of your tokens into like big fuck off dragons or flying sharks from Shark Typhoon. But there are some like really fun ways through, casting all the spells out of your graveyard with like a Mizzix's Mastery and like an Impact Tremors, or making really good use of Throne of the Godfair. So it really kind of touches on a lot of things in Magic, of graveyard synergies, of tokens, of combat, of spell slinging, and I think that is what makes this deck honestly such a joy to play, because it's always a little bit different every time that I get to play it, and every time that I've won in a different way. Like, one of my favorite times is when we were at Command Fest Seattle, I believe it was, and I had managed to make a token copy of a Twilight Prophet, the one where if you have Ascend, at the beginning of your upkeep, you reveal the top card and you gain life equal to the CMC, and then your opponents lose life equal to the CMC. Well, guess fucking what? I managed to get 17 Twilight Prophets. And I got 17 of those fucking upkeep triggers, and I just killed everyone, and it was so good. It was so good. I think that's the best way I've ever won with that deck. It brings me so much joy. The kind of goofy shit that this deck can pull off. And so I'm excited to finally talk about it. And with that, let's talk about what exactly this card does. Brudiclad, Telcor Engineer, 4, blue, red for a 4/4 legendary artifact creature, Artificer. Creature tokens you control have haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 blue Mer artifact creature token. Then you may choose a token of you control. If you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. So sometimes people get a little bit overwhelmed about what Brudiclad does. So to make it simple, you control Brudiclad, you go to your combat, you make a Mer, and then you look at all of your token types, and you decide, of all of your token types that you have, which one do you want all of them to be, and they all become that. And that's it. They stay that way until until combat on your next turn, where if you have a different token type, you can turn them all into that. It's not till end of turn, it's until they get changed again, which some people forget. So that alone already leads you to some really fun, like, ways that you can abuse that, and, like, turning everything into treasures, or if you have a crap ton of treasures, you turn them all into dragons if you have a dragon, or, turning them into clues, like, to protect them for board wiping on your, like, playing a board wipe on your second main. Like, there's a lot of, like, really cool lines, and things that you could do that, with that combat ability. I think it's really, really cool. And so I think where we want to start with, let me move my boy around. Let's start with, so I had said that this is a deck where the base philosophy is have creatures or effects that say whenever you cast an instant or sorcery or a non-creature spell, make a token. And so here are token producers that we've got. My favorite, as I said, one of my favorites, Young Pyromancer, 1 and a red for a human shaman, a 2/1, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. Love it. It's 2 mana. Like, what more do you want? Imagine, like, using one of the spells that makes token copies of any of these bad boys, and then all of a sudden you could have, like, 4 Young Pyromancers, and then you cast, like, a card draw spell, and now you've got 4 1/1 red elementals. Oh man, I'm just super hard fangirling. Just don't mind me. Oh, okay, like, also, all right. Side note, this is like one of my bling decks too, so it's like just all of the cards. Well, not quite all the cards. I'm not quite done yet, but just most of the cards in there, I just love looking at. They're foil, they're alt arts, they're signed. It's just a joy. The whole thing, the whole experience. Anyway, our second creature is Docent of Perfection, 3 blue for a 5/4 insect horror with flying, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you create a 1/1 blue wizard creature token, human wizard, notably. And if you control 3 or more wizards, you flip it over. On the backside, you have the final iteration, who is an insect horror, who is a 6/5 with flying, and it continues to have the ability of whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token onto the battlefield. And then it says, wizards you control have flying and have +2/+1. So you flip it over and you got a bunch of Delvers. You got a bunch of 3/2s with flying, on top of all the other wizards that exist in this deck. The next one being Ethereum Spinner, 2 and a blue for a 2/1. This is brand new from Modern Horizons 2, a nice sweet common. But whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, create a 1/1 Thopter artifact creature token. So in this deck, it's definitely not optimized. Oh my god, not even close. This deck is about big, silly, dumb, splashy, is it bullshit. In the deck, there are, I want to say 19 or 20 spells that are have mana value 5 or 4 or greater. This deck is definitely top heavy because it's looking to do just a bunch of silly stuff like Brass's Bounty and Big Dumb Epic Experiments, and we'll get into that. But so this is definitely a really solid common that was just an immediate shoe-in because it works for a fifth of our deck right off the bat. Not even including our X spells that we could pay and have them have mana value for or greater. Next one is, it's one that I have in foil, is Metallurgic Summonings. 3 blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, make an XX colorless construct where X is that spell's converted mana cost, or Jesus Christ, mana value. And then as an activated ability, for 3 blue, exile it, return all instants and sorceries from your graveyard to your hand, but you can only activate it if you have 6 or more artifacts. Oh man, getting to use that activated ability, then suddenly you just have this huge grip of spells in your hand. It feels so good. Definitely solid. Love this card. Very cool. I wish I could have made it happen in Kaladesh Standard because it's a neat ass card. Next we have Murmuring Mystic for 3 and a blue, a 1/5 human wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a 1/1 bluebird illusion creature token with flying. Solid. Got a big old booty. Cares about spells. New one from the Prismari Precon is Rionia Fire Dancer. 3 blue for 3/4 human wizard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create X tokens that are copies of another target creature you control, where X is 1 plus the number of instants or sorceries you've cast this turn. They gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. What's cool is that, so with this, it's also very important to remember that it's 1 plus the number of spells, so you always get 1 at a bare minimum. And then if you pick, so say like, let's say who would be a creature that we would pick to make copies of? Let's say Young Pyromancer. So say we've cast 3 spells, we're going to make 4 token copies of what we choose, Young Pyromancer. And then, so you stack the triggers so that you get Rionia's, so you resolve that one first. Beneath it, you get your 2/1 bloomer from Brudiclad being on the battlefield and it being the start of combat. And then Brudiclad's other trigger to turn all of your things into a certain kind of thing. You can pick Young Pyromancer. Only the ones that you've created with Rionia are going to get exiled at the next end step. So say if we had like 6 other tokens on the battlefield, giving us a total of 11 so far, we would have 11 Young Pyromancers. And then we could go to our second main and then cast an instant or sorcery. And then we have 11 elementals plus whatever the spell told us. And we go to the end step and only 4 of those Pyromancers that we made from Rionia would get exiled. Which is sweet. It's awesome. And then we have Saheeli, Sublime Artificer, 1 in 2 hybrid Izzet, a Planeswalker. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 servo artifact creature token as her static ability, and she has a -2. Target artifact you control becomes a copy of another target artifact or creature you control until end of turn, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. So it's actually cool being able to turn one of our servos into, some big bad creature. Really handy. Allows you to do a lot of different tricksy things with it. Very fun. She comes with 5 loyalty, so she's pretty defensible, especially only for 3 mana and having, I think we have like 47 instants and sorceries in this deck. Pretty easy to trigger, pretty easy to make bodies to help block her and keep her alive. And then we have Talrand, Sky Summoner, 2 blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. We love tokens with evasion, help us get through for combat damage, super good. But yeah, so those are basically our, oh wait, no, do we have more? We do have more. We always need more tokens. Is that it? No, I guess that is it. We also have like Shark Typhoon is in there, which is an enchantment with cycling for X one in a blue, one generic in a blue, I think. You can cycle it. If you do, you discard it and you make an XX shark token with flying. But it's an enchantment for 5 in a blue, and if you have it in play, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you make an XX shark creature token with flying, where X is the CMC of that spell. So that's another awesome one in here too. Flying sharks! And so let's look at our spells that make tokens now. So one of the great ones, Brass's Bounty, 6 in a red for a sorcery. For each land you control, create a treasure token. Holy shit. I mean, we're in Izzet. It's not like we have access to green to spill a bunch of lands out into play. But even still, being able to, if you're really, really desperate and maybe you've ramped with mana rocks, just being able to get any amount of tokens onto the battlefield is still pretty good. As long as, I mean, obviously breaking even, but like really if I'm getting 5 out of this, like I feel fine. It's like a bad ritual, but it's just about like we need getting that big pile of tokens because they're probably not going to be treasures for very long. They're probably going to end up being drakes or, whatever is going to be the most helpful thing at the time. Then we have an instant Cackling Counterpart for 1 blue. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, and it has flashback for 5 blue. So much mana. I've paid it once or twice, but oh, does that feel bad? Great. Love it. That's an instant. So good. It is a bummer that it's only something that you control, but we've got some pretty sweet things that we can copy in this deck. Then we have Goblin War Party, 3 in a red for a sorcery. You can entwine it for 2 in a red, so if you entwine it, you'll get to pick both modes, otherwise you'll choose one. You get to create 3 1/1 red goblin creature tokens, or you can have creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain haste until end of turn. So this is nice if Brudiclad has been killed, he's 6 mana. If he's been killed a couple times, getting him onto the battlefield can sometimes be rough. And so this is a nice way to get a little anthem and to give our creatures haste so that we can still push through even if we don't have access to our commander. But usually we're primarily playing this for the 3/1/1 goblins that we're going to put onto the battlefield. And then with that we have Hordling Outburst 1/1 red to create 3 goblins. I definitely think that there could be a fun way to build this deck where it's goblin tribal, and I think that might be my next project. Because I used to have Kranko, the mono red one who taps to make goblins equal to the number of goblins you control. But he ended up getting taken out for more spells and stuff. But I think there's like a really cool goblin tribal with this deck. I'm going to try it out. I will keep you all posted. But a new card from Strixhaven is Mascot Exhibition. For 7 mana, we create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying, a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token, and a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. So we get 12 power, we get 9 power for 7 mana on 3 different bodies. We can, and then, going to combat, we can make them all have flying, or we can make them, big chunky bodies on the ground. It gives us some nice versatility with that, which is cool. And then we have Quasi-Duplicate for 1 blue, a sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, and it has Jumpstart. Oh, I love cards with Jumpstart. Like, just when you've got that extra land in your hand in the late game, and you're like, fuck this island. We need to do something better. So good. Love that. And being able to cast our spells twice is definitely very important in this deck, because you can just turn through spells and run out of gas, and then if we can cast them from our graveyard, it's gravy train. And speaking of having spells being payoffs in our graveyard, we have Rise from the Tides, 5 and a blue for a sorcery. Create a tap 2/2 black zombie creature token for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. Oh boy. I think the highest I've ever gotten is 10, I want to say. It seems about right. Yeah, I love this card. Oh, so pretty. It's like sweet and foil. And then we have Rite of Replication, which is a classic. 2 blue, sorcery with kicker 5. And create a token that's a copy of target creature. If the spell was kicked, create 5 of those tokens instead. So with a lot of the copy spells in this deck, a lot of them are creatures you control, like Quasi-Duplicate and Cackling Counterpart. And so to be able to copy anything gives us some really, really nice versatility and just, and being able to turn all of our creatures into that. So there are some just crazy juicy targets that are always floating around in Commander. And alright, so those are some of our spells that make tokens. And then let's look at some is it bullshit. Epic Experiment. This is a spell that, like, when I cast it for the first time, I was like, oh, this is who I am. This is who we are now. Yeah. I love this spell so much. I try to jam it in like every single deck. It is 100% a pet card of mine. So it is X and blue-red for a sorcery. Exile top X cards of your library. You may cast it in instant or sorcery with CMC X or less from among them without paying its mana cost. Then you put all the exile cards that weren't cast this way into your graveyard. So it's basically like, what is it? Genesis Wave, but for instance, it's sorceries. Or, like Sahili's Directive. And so basically we're going to flip X, and then we're going to cast all the instant or sorceries, and then everything, and once we're done resolving, everything is in the graveyard. Very fun. I have, like, off of a really big mana geyser, cast this for like 30, and ended up casting like an Empty the Warrens for some big ridiculous storm count. Oh, it's a good time. Mind's Desire is a sorcery for 4 blue. Shuffle your library, then exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost, and it has Storm. So we're going to do this a number of times equal to the number of spells that have been cast this turn by all players. So yes, this is classic Storm win con. We opened a Japanese foil one in our collector's booster box of Strixhaven, and so I was like, we're throwing that in the deck. Hell yeah, we are. The next one we have is Mythic's Mastery. I think, like, JLK had like a 3-hour turn with this card recently on game nights. But it's a sorcery for 3 and a red. Exile target card that's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Exile Mythic's Mastery, and it has Overload for 5 red. This card is ridiculous. This card is so silly. And because for cards that we're running in here, like Archmage Emeritus, like Stormkiln Artist, we are going for each of those triggers, because cards with Magecraft say whenever you cast or copy a spell, do X. So Mythic's Mastery casts or copies a spell, and you may cast it. So you are going to get 2 Magecraft triggers for each instant and sorcery that you get to exile and cast with Mythic's Mastery, which is bananas. It is bananas. Oh my god. Next we have 1000-Year Storm, an enchantment for 4 blue-red. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, copy it for each other instant and sorcery that you've cast before it in this turn. You may choose new targets for the copy. Brilliant. Love it. Big dumb is it bullshit. Copying our spells left and right. And Empty the Warrens, 3 and a red for a sorcery. Create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Storm. Empty the Warrens is hands down my favorite Storm win con. I love, like, I'm a goblin. It makes goblins. It makes lots of goblins. It's very satisfying getting to put down all these little goblin boys who go rawr. And then we have a new card that I'm actually trying out to seeing how to see how it does in casual EDH, it's Wandering Archaic. It is a creature, a colorless creature for 5 generic mana, a 4/4. And whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, they may pay 2. If you don't, you may copy that spell and you may choose new targets for that copy. So it's nice since you get to copy the spell. If we have something with a Magecraft trigger on it, then when we copy it, then that'll trigger that, which gets us some nice, basically free value for our opponents doing things if they don't want to pay the extra 2 mana, which is pretty sweet. I haven't gotten to play it yet, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it does. See if we get to live the dream. But yes, as far as actual win cons that we have in the deck, 2 of them I think I might have mentioned before, but Impact Tremors, an enchantment for 1 and a red. Whenever a creature you control enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So it's just a really nice way for 2 mana while you're storming off. You get a big Empty the Warrens, you cast a bunch of spells, and you have like Metallurgic Summonings in play to get all of your little XX artifact constructs. Just nice closer. And then Throne of the God Pharaoh, and a legendary artifact for 2 mana. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures you control. So like classic, I was about to say Scarab God. Locust God win con, especially with all your hasty bugs. The Locust God actually used to be in here, but he's not anymore, unfortunately. I think he got taken out for Mind's Desire. I don't recall. But yeah, just going to combat, swinging big at 1 or 2 people, and then ending the turn and having everyone lose life. It takes game time and cuts it in half. So those are 2 of our big ones, aside from just smacking people with big dumb cards, with big dumb tokens. Yeah. And so with that, some card draw for what we're running in this deck, because it is so easy to just turn through cards and run out of steam. So being able to refill our hand is super, super important. And so some of my favorites that I have in here are Archmage Emeritus, 2 blue for a 2/2 human wizard with Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, draw a card. Yes, please, thank you. I want to make token copies of this so I can draw all the cards. Ooh, that's going to be my new goal the next time I play this deck, is to make as many copies of Archmage Emeritus as possible. That's a good one. Alright, I'm going to remember that. Consecrated Sphinx, 4 blue for a 4/6 creature Sphinx. With flying, whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. Fun story. Fun short story. I used to be a nanny for about 5 years, and one of the kids who I nannied for about 3 years out of that, he played Magic, and so we would play together. And one year for Christmas, he had got me this Consecrated Sphinx for Christmas, so it's very treasured and loved, and it has its place in my favorite deck. So it's a very sweet reminder of the kid I used to watch. He's a very sweet boy. Echo of Eons, 4 blue for a sorcery. You get to Time Twister. Each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their libraries, then draws 7 cards, and it's flashback for 2 and a blue. One of my favorite sorceries of all time, I think. Probably. Of all sorceries, I would say probably top 5. Really love this card. And then we have Pirate's Pillage, 3 and a red. As an additional, cast cost it, discard a card, draw 2 cards, create 2 treasure creatures. Is that a goblin? Is a goblin a treasure creature? No, draw 2 cards and create 2 treasure artifact tokens. And then, yeah, so solid card. It's a nice way. It gives us basically free value with effectively costs 2 mana, which is nice. And then we have Skull Clamp, one of the best card draw engines in the history of Magic. 1 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/-1. Big mistake. Whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards, equip 1. So yeah, as you saw with our token producers, we're making a bunch of 1/1s. We're sacking those suckers for cards. And then we have a new card that I'm a big fan of, Wheel of Misfortune. I think I talked about this card on the Valky video. But basically, everyone picks numbers. You look at what is the low number. Low number, you don't get to draw cards. What is the high number? High people who pick the highest number take damage, that amount of damage, and everyone else except for the lowest number draws cards. It's very simple. Alright. So those are some of my favorite card draw engines and spells in here. And then as far as acceleration and ramp goes, we're in Is It, we're running every single mana rock that we can basically run. And then we have cost reducers like Baral, Chief of Compliance, a 1/3 human wizard. Instants and sorceries you control cost 1 less to cast. And whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Second line of text very rarely matters. I think I run 3. Not even 3. I think I just run 2 counter spells in here, and it's because they make tokens. They cost 5 mana. They're not good. But they're fun. The next we have, for cost reducers, Goblin Electromancer, blue and a red, a 2/2 Goblin Wizard. Instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Super nice, very basic, does a lot of work. And then we have one of the best boys. It's Dockside Extortionist. 1 in the red for 1/2 Goblin Pirate. When he ETBs, you make X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your player or your opponents control. For the longest time, when after I had gotten into CEDH again, I bought a second Dockside for the CEDH deck because I would not take it out of Brudiclad. I could not deny this deck a Dockside because it is so fucking powerful, and it's my baby. This card, it's a finisher. Dockside Extortion is a finisher in and of itself. Honestly, pretty much in any deck, in almost any situation. But with the added synergy of caring about tokens, even more so plays into the theme of this deck, aside from just being a redonkulous card. Wizards, please print this card more. I don't want to have to, I love this card, but I don't want to pay $60 for every single one that I wanted to have. Make proxies. Mana Geyser, 3 red for a sorcery, add red for each tapped land your opponents control. This card is fucking ridiculous and casual. Oh man, if you're in a red deck, I really don't see why you wouldn't run it. The mana's not gonna stick around, obviously. It's a ritual, but ooh man, it is a closer. If you got a grip of cards that you can play. And then Stormkiln Artist, 3 in a red. It gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control, and as Magecraft, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, create a treasure token. Love it. Oh, casting me spells is gonna get me more mana so I can cast more spells. Yes, thank you. And then we're trying out a new card because opened one in our Strixhaven box. It's Rowan Scholar Sparks on the top half. 2 in a red for a 2 loyalty planeswalker. She says instants and sorceries cost 1 less to cast. That's really why this card is here. It's just another reducer, which is always good to have. But with the added benefit of having a +1 where she deals 1 damage to each opponent. If you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn, she does 3 damage to each opponent instead. Okay, sure. -4, you get an emblem with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay 2. If you do copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the copy. So, that's not bad. Like I had said, most of our spells are, not most of them, but a third, a little less than half than our spells cost 4 and up. So, getting the discount of only to pay 2 for a Brass's Bounty would be amazing. But then on the back half she has her brother, Will, Scholar of Frost, 4 and a blue for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. With the instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast. And he has a +1 up to 1 target creature. You can up to 1 target creature has base power and toughness 0-2 until end of turn. -3 to draw 2 cards. And then -7, exile up to 5 target permanents. For each permanent exiled this way, its controller creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. I mean, that's cool. It's okay. It's not the best ult I've ever seen. Might be fun. We might get there one day. Yeah. So that's kind of more of leaning on the cost reducers and treasure tokens. Because they are definitely in theme with the deck. And then, of course, we wouldn't be a commander deck if we didn't have some kind of removal. So some of my favorite removal spells and protection. So Chaos Warp, an instant for 2 and a red. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. Love this card. It's classic. If you really want to. I mean, we're running 47 instants of sorceries, so not many creatures, as you might imagine. But you can pick a token and shuffle and hope that you get a permanent that you can put on the battlefield if you just have a servo lying around. Most likely using it to hit someone else's thing, though. But like I said, the 2 counter spells that we are running in here, one of them is Confirm Suspicions, 3 blue, counter target spell, investigate 3 times. It's not good, but it's fun. The other one that we are running is Spell Swindle, 3 blue, counter target spell, create X colorless treasure artifact tokens, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. It's like a fixed mana drain. Oh man, when you get to Spell Swindle someone and it's just like so good, it's an excellent gotcha moment. I've hit like a chromium. Oh man, I love it. When it's good, it's good. Most of the time it's okay. A removal spell that I love that is both offensive and defensive. It's Descent of the Dragons. 4 red for a sorcery. Destroy any number of target creatures. For each creature destroyed this way, its controller puts a 4/4 red dragon creature token onto the battlefield that has flying. So this is a spell I love because, I mean, mostly we're making like 2/2 drakes, 1/1 servos, 1/1 thopters, all these like weird random things. And so this is how we get to have a board full of so many dragons. And you don't even have to destroy all of your creatures with this. You can just pick like the 1 servo that you have and say, boom, this is now a dragon. And then you get to pick out of your opponents, of their problematic things. It's way better that they just have some 4/4 dumb flyer instead of like, I don't know, all of like the insane, instead of like a Draenith Magistrate or, like, I was about to say Primeval Titan, but that's not legal. Like a Shieldred, so it is a win condition and it's also removal, which is why I love it. And I try to shove it in every deck that I possibly can because I make a lot of token decks. And then we have Perplexing Test, 3 blue. For an instant, you choose one of the 2 modes. Return all creature tokens to their owner's hand, or return all non-token creatures to their owner's hand. So this is an awesome way to clear out blockers. Probably gonna hit a couple of our things too, but definitely well worth it if this is what allows you to close the game out or buy you another turn, where people have to redeploy all of their creatures again. And then we have just a super dope common. Resculpt, 1 and a blue, an instant, exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. So this is sweet because we can hit our dumb 1/1 servo and we can get a big chunky 4/4 for 2 mana, or we can hit our opponent's stuff too. So that's why I love all these spells that have this incidental value of making tokens, are meant to be like the downside, like with Pongify or Rapid Hybridization. They can actually be upside for us because then we get to upgrade like our tokens from stupid little 1/1s. Yeah, so that's pretty much the deck. I will of course, post the deck list in the show notes. I think I have it updated with all of like the arts and everything that's foil in there. Maybe not. I probably have to go through again. But yeah, this is a really fun deck. This is the deck that is absolutely 100% my favorite deck, and I would really recommend that if we get the chance to play Magic together, because the world is opening up again. Then yeah, if you want to ask to borrow this deck from me, I will be more than happy to lend this deck to you. Yeah, or proxy it up, play it online on Cockatrice, and yeah, tell me how you like it. Tell me what are your big favorite instants and sorceries that are like 7 or more mana that aren't expropriate. Tell me in the comments. But I think that about wraps it up for this one. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, whatever time of day it is for you. And I'll catch you next time, friends.